So, good evening, everyone. My name is Yana Parker, and I'm the president of the Seattle Special Education PTSA. We're glad to have you. Today is April 22nd, and we're going to have kind of a schedule, pretty tight agenda, but very interesting agenda. So, we're going to first go through some housekeeping items. Kate, can you switch to the next slide? So if you need a Spanish interpreter, then you click on the bottom of the bar on the bottom. There's a little globe that you click on, and you choose the interpretation. So even if you are in English speaker, you need to also choose the English language. So, and then please introduce yourself in the chat if you could tell us just kind of what part of town you're from, or how old your kids are, which school, how much and how little you want to share. That would be appreciated.
This is
And
Sherilyn. Yana,
yes.
I don't see an interpreter on screen.
Hmm.
An ASL.
Okay.
This is Heidi, one of the ASL interpreters. I see Randy in the interpretation room, but I am not in there with him.
Yeah, I don't think they go into the interpretation room. I think we just do.
They go, yes. So I can.
But I'm not seeing anybody.
Can you start the video, please? Yeah. Can you start your video, and then I will try to put you in there. Randy's there. Okay. It says not joined. So Heidi, would you mind telling me your email? Oh, hold on. I think I have you. Here we go.
And I can just move us forward a little bit. If you want to keep the next slide.
You should be there now.
Okay. Okay, great.
Go ahead, Sherilyn.
So land acknowledgement. I'm continuing to work on approaches that make sure that our land acknowledgement is not thinking about a piece of history. The people of the land that we are on are still here. And it is stolen land. There was I'm going to share a little bit of local news. There's an interesting article in the Seattle Times that looks at development, increasing density in Montlake. And the reporter starts out by also talking to someone who has a Muckleshoot member of the Muckleshoot tribe who has been paying attention to what's going on and provides some context. So just a reminder that since time immemorial, Coast Salish people have lived on this land.
This is Yana. Thank you, Sherilyn. Next slide. Kate, do you want to take the meeting agreements?
Absolutely. This is Kate, and here are our meeting agreements. Keep the focus on students and their needs. Be mindful of airtime. Respect each other and each person's ideas. Discuss ideas, not individuals. Keep yourself muted unless you are speaking. State your name before you speak. Speak slowly to allow interpreters to do their work. Advocate for those that are not here. And note that our recorded meetings may be posted publicly.
I see that we have Director Gurley here. If we could get her spotlighted, that would be fabulous. Devin, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to see if we can spotlight you. Here we go. Okay, so welcome, Director Gurley, Special Education Director in the Seattle Public Schools. And we were supposed to go over the agenda. I'm jumping right into it. So anyway, 1 second, apologies. So we're going to have guests, report from Director Gurley, And then we're going to have a very short visit from School Board President Gina Topp about the superintendent search. Then we're going to do some PTA business fun stuff, treasurer report, committee reports, and some announcements. And the last agenda item is presentation about progress monitoring and more by EC Caucci, who is an educational advocate. And to my knowledge, special education teacher originally. So welcome everyone. And I will kind of hop back into talking to Devin. So we submitted a few questions back in February, and then kind of a whirlwind happened. Thank you very much, White House and other places. So we are hoping to hear an update. You know, we submitted about 7 pretty complex questions, so we want to see what you got, what answers we can get.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for having me. My name is Devin Gurley. I use she, her pronouns. I have the questions here. I have a few other small updates, and I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background. There is a cat at the back window that is making her quite excited. And I know I've got a short period of time because you've got a packed agenda. So I will try to be succinct and then follow up with follow-ups to questions that may come as well. So the first question that came from February was the status of staffing specifically for ESAs. And in special education, those are our occupational, physical therapists, occupational and physical therapists, as well as our speech language pathologists and school psychologists. We still are experiencing a shortage. We are working daily to try to fix that shortage. I don't have specific numbers for you at the moment, but what I can say is that we are working in partnership with human resources to make some changes to our hiring practices moving forward. And so the good news there is that both for special education teacher hiring as well as special education ESA hiring, we have been opening our hiring windows earlier in the spring. Because often what happens is when we establish that there is a need to hire a certificated special education teaching position, if it comes in late summer or early in the fall, those are very difficult to fill positions. And so what happens, what we're changing now is that our contingency contracts, which is teachers who are new to Seattle Public Schools, who know early in the spring, they may be getting ready to graduate from a teacher prep program, they may be coming from out of state or from another district, we can get them hired on early. So we're working in partnership with budget to be able to open those positions earlier and then get those loaded over to HR so that we can do the hiring as early as possible with our goal. We have a very ambitious goal with our HR partners of getting our positions fully hired by the fall. We're going to several hiring events this spring. And we're also bringing in more interns to try to grow our own, and then working on making there an opportunity for our interns to be hired as part of our earliest hiring, which is called phase 1 hiring. So there are a lot of things in the works to try to really cut down on the annual concern we have with our ability to hire what's already a high shortage area nationwide. Do you want me to just keep rolling through the questions?
Yes, I
Yana, or
think
pause
just keep rolling
Okay.
because we only have so much time. One
Yep.
thing though, we do have interpreters. So,
Okay.
and
Slow
we
down.
have people with disabilities trying to keep up with the audio. So
Okay. I'll
just a
speak
little,
more slowly.
yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So updates on inclusionary practices. We are working as a senior leadership team. And by that, I mean the directors and executive directors and folks at the superintendent level collaboratively to move from our inclusionary practices early adopter work into a full implementation. What I shared at the December audit committee is that systems change takes a good 5 to 7 years, and we're really at year 1 to 2. So the other piece of that, and we're working on a new request for proposals to expand what was our early adopter into a full framework for inclusionary practices, which is going to be grounded in multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. So one thing you might notice if you look at our board policies around MTSS, 2163 and 2163 SP, is that they were last updated in 2011 and 2012. And so what I have, and I'm pulling a multidisciplinary team together where we are going to be starting with ensuring we have a revised and updated MTSS. We're going to be recommending to the superintendent updated superintendent procedures. We are going to be, we haven't talked to the school board about this, but thinking about updates and changes, we're going to ask for board partnership to look at the board policy that supports it. In addition to that, we are going to be working on a Seattle Public Schools vision for multi-tiered systems of support so that every staff member and community member can say or be able to refer to this is what MTSS in Seattle Public Schools is. Because what you'll see right now is if you go to various departments, everybody has their own version of MTSS. Lots of school, we have 104 schools and probably 104 different ways that MTSS is being implemented in those schools. And so MTSS is really that overarching piece that is not special education. And that's one of the big things that I'm trying to help distinguish, because a lot of people see MTSS as a path to special education evaluation, where what we want to make sure we're doing is providing solid tier 1 interventions or solid tier 1 supports to all students, and that we are providing supports based, and we're focusing more on what adults need to do and how we can support adults rather than seeing a deficit or a need in a student. So that's going to be a mindset shift in a lot of this work as well. So I've got a great multidisciplinary team. We are kicking this off. Yes, Shannon, we are in partnership with all of Student Services, including the Executive Director of Coordinated School Health, who oversees 504. We are also working with the Regional Executive Directors of Schools.
This is Jana. Devin, can you tell us names? Who is that? Like when you're saying the title, also include the name.
Sure. So the Interim Executive Director of Coordinated School Health is Carrie Nicholson, Dr. Carrie Nicholson. And she was formerly the Director of Health Services. And so then we also have other members of the Student Supports team, which includes special education, advanced learning, coordinated school health, which is all of the departments within Carrie's organization. We have regional executive directors. So specifically right now, we have Executive Director Chris Carter and Executive Director Dr. Mercer as part of the team. We also have members of the principal coaching team. We also have the manager of teacher support, the professional growth and evaluation support for teachers, to really look at this from multiple, and curriculum and instruction as well. So representatives from that team to be determined. Dr. Mia Williams is part of the team from the Thriving Center. I'm sure I'm missing some folks, but it really is a multidisciplinary team. And when I tell you the excitement that was in the room today, that we're really we've got a lot of folks who like to get things done in that room. And so we've got a bunch of folks who are who have been veterans in the district. Myself, I've been here 21 years, and we've got folks who far exceed me in service to the district, who have seen multiple rollouts of MTSS that have not resulted in change. So this is EC. That's kind of a broad question. I think one of the things I had mentioned is that there was some MTSS work happening in the 2010s, and that we're working on revising and updating that based on various different things. I'm trying to see if I'm missing any other questions.
This is Yana. I also put in the chat our recording to our January general membership meeting, where we had RJ Morton from OSBI was in charge of MTSS, and it is his passion, and he's also a fellow parent in my kid's school. So we had him present on MTSS, and it was very, very helpful. So, Sherilyn.
This is Sherilyn. Devin, I had asked if you could provide an example, measurement example of how that 5 to 7 years is going to roll out. I totally understand things can shift. This is a significant cultural shift.
Sure.
It'd also be great to know if there was, it's like, if you haven't hit a mark by this, okay, what's in the way, those types of things. Do you have that in a document?
I don't have that in a document at this time, but I can provide some examples. So one example might be that our desired state is that every school has an assessment calendar, has common assessments, and that they're using those to drive instructional decisions. So where we hope to be in 5 to 7 years is that all schools have those fully in place and that they are using those to drive instructional decisions. Where we are right now is that we have some schools using common assessments, some schools using individual assessments, some schools that have assessment calendars, and some that do not. And so what this next year is going to look like is providing a lot of support to our school leaders on building these systems out by providing professional development, job embedded coaching, and on the ground supports. So that's one thing that we look at small wins and small measurements, and we look at the progress over time for some of those foundational pieces. And then what we hope to see in 5 to 7 years is 100% of those schools will then be of our schools will then be using all of these high leverage foundational practices. So that would be one example. Okay, so I am going to skip down to so the Special Education Advisory Council's meetings have been kind of tabled for now to come back moving forward in the spring. A plan moving forward for the spring. So stay tuned for that. In terms of, sorry?
Spring, you said?
We are in the spring, I know.
Right. So next spring?
Yes. Yes, I'll be sending out information to bring it back. One of the things that we really want to make sure we have centered in this is student voice. And so making sure that we have student representatives as part of that. So making some plans in the spring so it's built into their student days in the fall so that we aren't asking them to do, something outside of their instructional day to the maximum extent possible. So that's one of the pieces that is kind of a primary driver there. In terms of surveys, when we had our on-site Washington Integrated System of Monitoring review last school year, There was a survey that OSPI put out for families to take. I need to check in with OSPI to get the results of that survey, but certainly can share that with you all.
This is Jana. There's also a bill that passed this legislature that when all districts will be required to gather information, send out surveys when to all families, not just those who are leaving, which I think is an excellent opportunity to get the actual feedback, right? What we are,
Yeah.
what families are thinking and how are they feeling in each school district, in each school.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Thank you. And then in terms of, I don't have specific numbers on the dyslexia training, but what I can say for the status of curriculum for students in the distinct pathway is that we have multiple options. We have news to you and unique learning systems and symbol sticks and Steyer Fitzgerald. So those are part of the classroom package that we write out a scope of what a classroom pack setup is supposed to have. And so those are part of that. And so that's the distinct curriculum.
This is Cheryl Lynn.
Mhm.
Devin, it just sounded like when we were talking to a distinct teacher that, is that a new curriculum or has that been something that's been around for a couple of months or this year?
Years. We've been working on this. So the old Steyer Fitzgerald, we've always had part of our curriculum package, which was the binders. We have migrated to the more modern version, which is a web-based, where teachers can pull, things that they need off of that. So this has been going on for a few years now. This refresh and this update. So
this is Jana. So is this available to all distinct teachers? Is it
yes.
something that is, do they have to search for it? Where is it available? Because we keep hearing this issue.
So there are a few different ways in which, so all of the new classrooms, if it's been added or if it's had to move or for some reason, that is the standard package that everybody gets.
So if a student, if a teacher gets hired, they're provided that in like welcome packet, they get this a curriculum for their distinct classroom.
It's part of what's available for that classroom in that program. So we work with our program specialists, our consulting teachers for the new teachers all have all of this information. We also have distinct professional learning communities where all of this curriculum support options, if there's any supplemental materials to meet individual student needs, all of that is through those particular support pathways. We also provide summer training to curriculum training for anybody who wants to come.
This is Jana again. Thank you for that information. I do wonder if teachers, because we do periodically hear from teachers, so if they don't have access to it, who should they contact?
Their program specialist.
Program specialist. Okay.
Yep.
And then is the training available for throughout the year, or I guess what kind of support is there? And I think that I'm going to let that be at that point.
Yeah, so there's summer training. There have been training opportunities throughout the year. I can't pinpoint exactly when they are. I do know they try to have them on the early release days for the job alike days, but I can't, don't quote me specifically on that. I know that access to staff for providing PD is something that we're working to increase the capacity of in partnership with SEA. So yes.
Okay. I guess, Devin, one last thing, something that is not on the list of questions that is kind of coming up, what we're hearing. I don't know how much you can share about what we're hearing is that the district is proposing to, or there is a talk about possibly extending the CBA for another year. Is that is that still in the talks? Is there any sort of more news on this?
I think you and I may have the same information, Yana. So I have heard
I'm
that.
sorry,
Yep.
because I don't have
CBA,
any.
yeah. CBA is the collective bargaining agreement. So it's the agreement between Seattle Education Association, there's three particular groups. There's certificated staff, classified staff, and office professionals. So those are the three bargaining units. And the CBA that we're referring to is for the certificated staff specifically, is the conversation that I'm hearing, that we may be working on a potential extension of the current one. But that I have not heard anything from the source of any updates. Our team is preparing for multiple options moving forward. So
Okay, well, this is Yana. So when you do have some information, we kindly ask that you share it with us,
sure, happy to.
and or who we can ask and bother for it so that we can have some information that would be really helpful, because
Yeah,
I think lack of information is almost worse than having information we don't like, right?
absolutely.
It's hard to advocate for something better when we don't know what it is.
Oh, I 100% agree. I would also love that information so I can.
So who would be the person?
I think probably starting with Chief Redmond, likely has the talking points or knows where to get the talking points, is who I might direct but I will continue to work on getting that information, and as soon as I get it, I am happy to share with you all as well.
Fabulous. All
Thank
right.
you, Kara. Thank you, Kara. So May 15th is the first meeting date.
Okay.
Couple quick things, and you can tell me next meeting, Yana, if you want to move on. I just wanted to acknowledge that there have been some very harmful statements made by our federal government and RFK Jr. in particular, specifically around autism, specifically around the humanity of individuals with disabilities, around a tracking system for our individuals with disabilities, our autistic students, autistic individuals in the community. This is incredibly troubling, and I just wanted to let you all know that our steadfast support for making sure that we can advocate in all the ways that we can, that we believe that this is really harmful and hurtful. And stay tuned, because we are also working on preparing some language to support the disability community, and specifically the autism community at large, around just making sure that our Seattle schools community continues to be a nurturing and welcoming place that honors the strengths of everybody, and that we just steadfastly disagree with the things that are coming out of HHS and the federal government right now. So
This is Yana. We very much appreciate it, and my family especially. We have that going on very much on both sides, and
Yeah.
so and all over. So I think, and my boys are fabulous autistic young beings that you can't. I mean, they wouldn't be who they are, I guess. Anyway, so thank you. And one mini question or for thought is there any training on autism or neurodiversity available for staff, and possibly any sort of presentations for families or the whole community as a whole?
Sure. That's actually, thank you for bringing that up. We do have summer trainings on neurodiversity for our staff. But I think that there is a good opportunity here for us um, to ensure that our educator community and our families also receive some of the training and supports, so that these hurtful narratives cannot be persist within our own Seattle Public Schools community. So, Cheryl, it's an optional training. There's the mandatory trainings for staff in the district are set by a group of people that is not me. So, but we do provide it.
So this is Yana. I will say that unless something is mandatory, we really cannot see that having global or systemic impact because, you know, the things I've heard as an advocate and as a parent in the community is there have been some comments suggesting that possibly the way staff is operating now is because of the change at the federal level. And I don't know that that's true or not true. I can only share my experiences that I have seen those same things happening and being said before the White House went dark. So I say there is a much more need than we see. And we need to stop hearing from that, you know, your child doesn't look autistic or we don't see this at school. I mean, it seems like in my over decade in SBS, it keeps coming up. And it kind of is shocking each and every time. It's not surprising, but shocking. So I hope that we can figure out a way to provide this some sort of incentive or just mandate because otherwise it won't happen. And I know a lot of that is that teachers are overwhelmed and there's a lot on their plates. There's a lot of training they could use, and they could also use this before they start working, right? We need to start in
Absolutely.
colleges, but my hope is that we can have every single staff member knowledgeable about neurodiversity and autism particularly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, holding
Yeah.
space for our kids is absolutely number one, and that should be the center of every decision we make. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Devin. Thank you
Yep.
for joining us tonight. We're going to try to hop onto our PTA business before we get onto our presentation. I have a good night.
Thank
And
you.
you are welcome to stay, but there will be a recording, and I'm sure you had a long day. So, so up to you. Anyways,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
good night. Okay, so this is Yana again. We had Director or President Topp join us, but I heard she's solo parenting tonight, so she had to hop off. So I'm just going to go ahead and read what Director Topp or President Topp said, and then add some things that I had she shared with me in a conversation. So a reading out loud because not everybody will be able to read this. Hello, everyone. This is Gina Topp, School Board Director for District 6, which is mine. I need to jump off for an evening, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to speak with you directly. The board is just beginning the superintendent search process, and we're looking forward to engaging with you more in the months ahead. We also have 3 upcoming board and community engagement sessions over the next 3 weeks. Here's the link for more information on those sessions. And we also have a slide on the dates towards the end. We will remind you all. So please reach out to her directly, and her email address is gktopp, T-O-P-P, at seattleschools.org, and she even left her cell phone number, work cell phone number, 253-691-0135. And I know that that the board is planning to engage with our community of the Seattle Special Education PTSA specifically. So we will keep you posted when and how that happens. And we're going to move on to the next agenda item. All right, so we're gonna go through um, nominating committee. Sherilyn, do you want to just tell us where things are and how they play out and how we may need to have election separate meeting?
Yeah, this is Cheryl Lynn, the nominating committee. I'm one of the 3 members of the nominating committee, along with Susan Hernandez and Ashley Thurkle. And we have gotten a handoff and we've started texting, but we do not have our meetings set up yet. Because elections have to have 15 days public notice. We're looking at potential for a one-off meeting in June to elect next year's board. What can I say? Part of it, I was working with the newsletter too. If you or people that you know who are advocates are scared because of what's going on at the federal level, get involved. Join us. Become a volunteer here. Even if you can do half of it, then we can find someone else to do half. So if you're thinking about doing it at all, send a note to the NomCom email and get on board. Thanks.
This is Yana. Thank you, Sherilyn. So I know that Susan Hernandez, who's also on the nominating committee, has been interviewing people. That's all I have as the president. I don't have much more information. I just was asking for some information. So I know that it's rolling. The one way we could possibly hold election in our May meeting is, which I believe is May 20th, is that we would need 2/3 approval. Otherwise, majority approval and requires the 15 days. But we'll see what we can do. It is hard to get people into meeting in June because the weather's beautiful and everybody wants to be outside, understandably. So otherwise, you know, if you would like to nominate somebody, ask them if they're willing to, even if they're like, I just want to help. I am not really an advocate. As long as you're willing to help, willing to do, you know, learn and do the work, we have supports. As a immediate past president, I'm going to stay on the board in that position for the next year and support the board and the new president. And there's a lot of us, you know, who have done PTA elsewhere or haven't done anything. It's okay. You know, you can learn and you can get started. As long as as you try to advocate, you're an advocate right there. Okay. Do we have actually, I think that Catherine is not able to join us tonight. So I think we're going to have to skip. There weren't many changes anyway. Skip treasurer report. So we're going to go to committee reports very briefly. Communications. Do anything to report? Kate.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Family and community engagement.
I think if you go to the next slide, I updated it with activities.
Mm.
So really encourage you to make a connection with with anybody in the membership or anybody who comes to one of our meetings, and sip and chats are a great opportunity for that. A lot of tonight is at you, but the sip and chat is really a dialogue. It's just kind of a casual conversation. It's virtual, and we're trying it at 8 o'clock at night because sometimes that means you can kind of get the kids down. Tomorrow is dyslexia focused, but if you are not interested in dyslexia, you can still come in and we can work on answering questions. Although I didn't know anything about dyslexia, and I've learned a lot through this organization over the last 4 years, and it's really good to know. Good to know before you find out you've got a kid with dyslexia. Sip and Chat Legislative Advocacy is on Tuesday, May 6th. Big thing, if you know people who are coming into the Seattle School District Special Education Program, whether they're transitioning, their little one, their 3-year-old is transitioning, or maybe they're moving in, we have an in-person event on Saturday, May 17th, Soft Landing. It's essentially an orientation of our own that we made up so people can kind of get a sense of what to expect. And then Wednesday, May 21st is then the last sip and chat that we have scheduled. What I don't have on here is the June in-person event that we're going to do. That's just kind of a get together, bring the kids and play. Trying to see if we can find a space that will have activities, but also provides a little bit of fencing so parents don't have to worry too much about kids. Okay.
This
That's,
is Yana. That's June 8th, right?
June 8th. Thank you. Yes, Sunday, June 8th. So
Mhm.
that's a family and community engagement work that's underway. And if you're interested in learning more, there's a FACE meeting next Monday. I think so. I think I'm triple booked, so we'll see. Okay, thanks.
We do have the meetings posted on Facebook and on our calendar on our website as well. Thank you, Sherilyn. And then the next one, I'm not sure if we have Mel here because, but we do have or did have Laura Marie Rivera, who's our legislative advocacy co-chair, and in 2 meetings all at once. So what I'll do is, Kate, could you move to the next slide? I'll just say very briefly that April 27th is the cutoff date. I don't know how you say it in English. I know I had Latin in school, so it would be sine die. So I think it's sin die here, but don't quote me on it. This is basically the last day that's allowed for regular session under the state constitution, regular legislative session. This means that after 5 p.m. on April 27th, the legislature can only pass initiatives, budgets, revenue matters, amendments, and resolve disagreements between the legislative chambers. As we have right now, there are some disagreements about how much money we need for education. Somehow the House bill shows very little money, very little funds, and it would not offset our deficit in Seattle Public Schools or anywhere else really. And so we're hoping that that bill did pass legislature, and now the Senate bill is going, the House bill, no, the Senate bill, sorry, got amended, and it's being sent back to the House for review. Basically correct this. You have a chance to correct it, and there are 2 choices. Either the bill will die or it will get amended. They will wrestle it over and agree on some reasonable amount of money, because we really need to offset the tragedy that's happening at the federal level, right? Then I don't see anybody here, so I'm going to keep talking for just 2 more minutes before we head it off to our presenter. And so the next Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting is tomorrow at noon. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow because tomorrow is also school board meeting. So if you signed up, please come testify and talk about your experience, and or at least log in and or attend and listen to what people have to say. At 5 o'clock, there's public testimony. Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting is at noon, lunch hour, and I'll put the links in the chat. And then there's also May 6th, 7 to 8 o'clock, Legislative Advocacy specific sip and chat to wrap up the legislative session. Yeah, so that's about it. And then the last, can we go to the reminder page? Okay, reminders. So we have the school board has community engagement meetings, and I'm going to give you, that's the link that Director Topp shared. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. So the next one is also on Wednesday at 7 p.m. at Akikurase Middle School Library. The next one is April 30th at Denny Middle School Library, which is 2 minutes from me. And then May 7th at Daniel Bagley Elementary School Library. So I hope that you go and you share and participate to make sure that whatever happens and whoever is chosen for superintendent is someone that we do need. So thank you for any part of advocacy you can do. And we're going to move on. We're going to just skip to our presentation. All right. Okay, so welcome. We have E.C. Caucci, who is the disability advocate from Hamesh Disability Advocacy and Accessibility Consultation. EC, he is a disabled, queer, and neurodivergent educator, organizer, and advocate who specializes in removing systemic barriers of all kinds. Drawing from deep personal experience as a disabled professional and parent, EC founded Hamesh Disability Advocacy and Accessibility Consultation in 2023. Over the past 2 decades, they have worked as a special educator, program specialist, IEP compliance professional, teacher coach, accessibility consultant, behavior interventionist, and educational advocate. EC spends a lot of his time thinking furiously about how to solve complex problems and playing Scrabble with their family. We are excited to have EC present at our meeting tonight. So off to you, EC. Let me locate you and
Here I
spot.
am.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
being
so
with
much.
us.
Whoa, I haven't had an introduction like that in a while. So I'm really, really excited to be here. Let me see if I can share. Can you give me sharing capacity so I can share
I'm
my role?
working on that. I am a little slower.
I must admit to everyone that things are heavy. And so I just want to name that before I start. I'm super grateful for this organization, for the work that you guys are doing. It's incredible. We love to see so many people coming in wanting information, which is sort of the message of what I'm bringing to you guys today. We want to talk about progress monitoring. We want to talk about data. We want to talk about things that we can do to protect ourselves and our educational community. So I'm going to go ahead and get this up.
This is Yana. I will say one thing, and I completely spaced the update on the special education guide, which is why we had Cheryl here, who is also working behind the scene to put that together. And I am actually glad that EC reached out to us when they saw our work on the guide. And so we are updating the guide. And we are thankful for the support and the help with it as well. So I'm sorry we didn't get to the complete update, but it is in the works.
Well, I can vouch personally that the work that the team is doing in creating this comprehensive guide, it's incredibly important work. If anybody ever wants to talk more about it or needs any specific information, always feel free to reach out. It's amazing that there is such a bounty of knowledge in a nice small package. We like that, right? Okay, I'm gonna try to share again. And let me see if I can do this. Ta-da! Cool. Let me see. I will also tell you guys that I have been on a hiatus from doing large professional development for a while, maybe like 9 months. So this is sort of me getting back into it, and I'm excited about it. Okay. So again, thanks for the intro, Yana. My name's EC. My pronouns are they, he. Either one's fine. You can alternate them. It's all fun. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about progress monitoring. We're going to talk about it in sort of a larger overview, but I'm also going to leave some time for you guys if there are any burning questions, anything in particular that comes up, drop it in the chat. And then at the end, we'll go through the chat and I can take some time to answer things, you know, if there's something in particular that hits you. Okay. First things first, deep breath. I need accommodations and it was heavy. So like, let's all just take a deep breath together. Okay. And now we can go ahead. Okay. So when Yana asked me to come in and share about progress monitoring, I was like, this is fantastic. This is something that did that go away? Hold on one second. My apologies. I'm having a technical difficulty.
I don't think it went away.
Oh, you still have it. There we go. Okay, so now you can see me. So progress monitoring was what Yana wanted me to talk about. And this is fantastic because I would say 80% of my career as a teacher, as a program specialist, as an IEP compliance person, we're thinking about progress monitoring. Progress monitoring is a keystone of every single thing that we do as educators, and is something that is largely not talked about in ways that are accessible for everyone. So I think it's great. I really want to have this conversation, and I could probably teach a full course on it that would take an entire semester. So I'm going to try and give you guys just sort of some of the updates and some of the overviews about what progress monitoring is, what data is, and the reasons why we're needing to have a better understanding of these things in order to protect ourselves, our teachers, our school communities, right? Okay, so progress monitoring is a systematic review of data that's going to show progression towards or away from something you're trying to do. Progress monitoring is essential for many reasons. Like I mentioned before, it is the keystone, the most important thing when we're making decisions. We can't just make decisions based on hunches. We know what happens when we do that. We have seen it many times in larger systems. When we have hunches, we have biases. And when we inherently have a biased system, a very ableist society, then a lot of times, without even trying or without even understanding, when we don't use data to make decisions, we make decisions with bias, which we don't want to do. Nobody likes that. And that's why so many families and so many teachers are coming up against really hard things because we don't talk about data. We don't talk while thinking about data. So it's also important because it's required for documentation of services and also the accountability for the quality of the services that students are getting, as well as the quality of training that teachers are getting. So you sort of see what I'm talking about here. We need to have data. We need to have monitoring in order for every member of the school team to be successful. Like I said, it's essential so the teams, families, providers can communicate properly. We are all very tired. We're all very tired. So when we're communicating without data and progress monitoring and updated actual pieces of information, we are not communicating properly. We get angry. We don't understand each other. We don't understand what's happening. A lot of times we don't hear back from our school staff, or we don't have the communication that we need from the leadership, right? Because we just don't have the communication. And that said, progress monitoring, data collection is a safeguard for your rights. If you do not have data, and if you do not have proper progress monitoring for your student, or in your classroom if you're a teacher, or in your school, we were talking about MTSS earlier, if we don't have those data-based practices, we don't have safeguards of our rights. And we can't say to people that are funding us, this is the data that we have, and this is why we need this, right? If we don't have those things, we do not safeguard our rights. So this is why at the very, very foundation of our educational system, we need data, and we need to eliminate bias, and we need to create communication. It's really important. Let me see if I can get the slides to do the thing. Oh, I did it. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't have a degree in IT, but I can talk about this a lot. All right, so data. What is it? It's really simple. It's a piece of information or a group of information that's documented. It's time bound. That's going to help us to inform a decision or illustrate what's happening. It's really, really important. Data is essential. And there's a reason why, as special educators, you're required to take data. It, again, removes the innate possibility of acting without evidence. If you are making a decision as a teacher or a service provider or a principal, or honestly, even as a parent, it goes for every single person that has a responsibility to make decisions. If we are acting without evidence, then we don't have a safeguard. The more data we have, the more safeguard we have against discrimination, the more safeguarding we have against decision making that is not in the best interest of our students or our families or our teachers, etc. It's really important to allow data to lead you through authentic conversations. A lot of times people are having conversations and they are not keeping it student-centered, right? We think about that, we hear that a lot. What we really mean, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, when we say student-centered, we really mean data-centered. We really mean what is actually happening with the student. What's going on with the kid that is measurable, that is not subjective, you know? And as parents, it's so hard, and I speak as a parent of a neurodivergent child and as a neurodivergent person myself, it's really hard not to get wrapped up in your own narrative of like, what is best for my child, right? And sometimes data can really help us to step back and say, okay, this is a measurable way to look at this, and I don't have to be further traumatized or angry or whatever about what's happening if I have an understanding of what's actually happening. And I do a lot of work with families around that, and it helps a lot. It helps a lot of us to turn down our adrenaline, right? Because we are all so adrenalized because we are fighting and fighting and fighting. So data is a beautiful helper to help us to work less hard, hopefully, if it's done correctly, right? Okay, so again, safeguard for the rights of everyone involved. An important part of a just system that dissolves the concept of professional judgment. Air quoting that as a standard for reasonable evidence. When I talk about professional judgment, I don't know if any of you guys have run into this as a concept in the educational world, but a lot of times school psychologists or speech language pathologists or other folks that have sort of a unilateral evaluation power is kind of how I look at it. They will go, this is the decision because this is my professional judgment. And that's okay if they have data that can substantiate and really tell why that's their professional judgment. Because we don't live in a world where we can't ask questions. Got to ask questions. And when you come up and your psychologist is saying, you know, this is my professional judgment, it's important for us to have data and to have questions because we can no longer trust that. We want to trust that and we want to be able to do that, but we need data in order to make sure that we're all on the same page. That said, it's a way to allow professionals to be transparent in their decisions and build trust with families. And the more that we do that, the less need there is for folks like me to come in and teach teams how to do data, or say, hey, we have some really deep questions about why you're making this decision, and this is a conversation that needs to happen. And we'll have less families that are exhausted, right, or distrustful. And I really think that if we made a push to understand this more, like as a whole society and as a system, that we would be able to have more trust in general. I could talk about that for a million years, though. I won't, but that's where I'm coming from. Let's see, can I do this? There we go. Okay, so let's sort of take it from big to a little bit smaller. We'll just talk about special or inclusionary education data. We are going to be seeing data on many levels of the special education process. We should be. A lot of times we are not seeing data in real ways that are really informing decisions because of a variety of reasons that I'll talk about later. We don't have to worry about that now, but we're talking about educational evaluations. The educational evaluation is the data king that drives the special education process. Psychologists have a lot of power in the educational evaluation process. And so when you're not getting an educational evaluation based on data and based on the things that are really happening, then you're not really getting an entryway into the special education process that is equitable, right? I'm going to make that little so I can see this. Okay, great. So areas of data collection and ed evaluations, you're going to have pre-evaluation data to make recommendations for the areas, standardized testing, which apparently there's going to be more of with the MTSS process, observational data, behavioral data, general education data, also medical data, data from providers that are treating your kid outside of the process, occupational therapists and SLPs. All of those things are coming in, and that's data that we count on in order to make special education work and really help our students in the most beneficial ways, right? Then we got the IEP, which is going to be based on part of the educational evaluation, and then also whatever progress monitoring has occurred during the IEP cycle, if there's already been an initial IEP. Then also general education is a place where data must exist. I have lots of thoughts and feelings about general education data collection and standardized testing as an ableist practice. However, it is a very important part of the picture of data collection when we're going in and talking about progress, and we're going in and talking about what we need in order to have inclusionary practices. So that's something that we think about. So we'll talk a little bit smaller even. I have this little triangle over here, that just sort of illustrates the IEP cycle between the evaluation, the IEP, and then the implementation of services. We're going to need all sorts of things collected. We're going to be really needing information, and that's where, data and progress monitoring come in. So data in the IEP process, just a short overview. Data in the IEP process is going to include a snapshot of where the student is now in that time, which is called the present levels. Present levels are what is happening for your kiddo right now. We also call this baseline. This is the baseline data. So when you're having an IEP, when you're having either an initial IEP or, an annual IEP that's going to occur once a year or more, depending, once a year at the very least, you're going to have a section called the present levels. That's going to include, hopefully, all of the data that I sort of previously discussed, as well as actual measurable data that is a baseline. You're going to find that in your goals. So the data is going to set goals for 1 year's growth with the best database guess. It's really hard, and I can speak as a teacher to make a accurate guess of what a student's growth capability is for 1 year, which is a problem because a lot of folks are going in and assuming that there will be no changes within the year or the cycle. When there is not proper progress monitoring, there often is not any change for the entire year cycle of the IEP, which is not often the best practice. Moving on. So data in the IEP process is going to document the support and the instruction required to meet the goals in the least restrictive environment, which is going to be, all of the services that are documented in the accommodations. These are all going to be based on this data. It's going to be based on data collected from educational evaluations and IEP progress monitoring from the previous cycle, if applicable. And it requires consistent time-based monitoring that should be documented. And this is controversial, but this is who I am. It should be available to every member of the IEP team, including parents, at any time. I would like there to be a world, and I think we could get there, where a parent could ask a teacher for weekly collected IEP goal data, and it would be provided to them. And that's very rare, but we've done some work and I've seen some movement on that. And it is life-changing when parents can access that. And moreover, any member of the IEP team, because data is about transparency. We should be holding IEPs to a higher level of accountability through transparency and data collection. Okay, so let's talk about best practices for progress monitoring. This whole subject is giant and very much contingent on a lot of different factors, which is why sometimes individualized coaching and communication is really important in this situation, but I'm going to do my best. So there is one very, 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 very important thing in life regarding progress monitoring and data collection. The only thing, if you don't take anything else away, the number one thing in life is measurement. It must be measurable. As a neurodivergent person, I oftentimes think other people think the way that I do, and they do not. And I learned that over and over again. And the one thing that's going to bind us all together is if we have a common language. And the common language of the IEP and of any instruction and any intervention, behavioral intervention, anything, is measurement. We all must have a common measurement, which is very, very hard for people to understand unless they are really steeped in knowledge about data collection and progress monitoring. So best practices and things that you can go to your IEP team or your school team, depending on who you are, you just need to really think together and have a combination of a few different ways of measuring. You put them all together and it will give you a common language. Number one, what is success? What does it look like? What is it specifically? Because if you go to an IEP goal and it says that the student will, successfully do some sort of action, do we all have the same understanding of what that is, right? What does it mean to be successful? And is there a percentage of a thing that you need to do? What does it look like specifically, right? Once you know that, are we doing trials? A lot of teachers will do percentages of success or trials of success. And that's one way of looking at it, but is it really measurable? No, because number one, we need to know what success looks like. And then we can say, okay, how many successes did we have in a row? Because we know when we're looking at kids and students, we need to have them demonstrate the success consistently for a certain period of time, right? The last thing that I do not see happening a ton, and that I would always coach my teachers on for many, many, many years, is we have to have an amount of time for your data collection period, right? So if you're gonna have a year-long IEP and you're going to say, this student is going to do this in 4 out of 5 trials, is that over an entire year? Because that's an awful long time, right? That's a very, very long time for a student to be consistently doing that. Or do we say a period of 6 weeks? Because if a student gets 4 out of 5 trials in a period of 6 weeks, you know that they are more on their way to having a sustainable practice in the skill that they've learned, right? So we really need to just think about, how are we measuring things? How are we trialing them? How many times does the student have to show a certain percentage or measurement of success? And then what is the time period that we're collecting that data? The appropriate time period to show that the student has significantly been performing without any regression. So regression, we'll talk about regression later, but in order to make the next step, you have to have all of those things. And it's not just about the measurement of success and successful attempts and all of these things. It's also about, if you have 6 weeks and the student has gotten 0 trials or 1 trial successful, it's probably time to pivot, because what you're doing is not making progress. So that's when the best practices as an educator or as a service provider, you go back and you say, why isn't this student progressing? How can we scaffold this? How can we go backwards? Is an accommodation needed? Is something else needed? And that way the student is getting more out of the service, and the teacher or the provider is not wasting time sort of doing something, trying to see if it will happen. We don't want to wait a whole year, right? We want to have these thoughtful conversations. And that's why data and progress monitoring are so important. Also, progress reports are trimesterly, right? So that's a long time in between things. Yep. Yana?
This is Yana. So I am sending some recording questions in the chat that do come to me as you speak. But one that is kind of on point here is that which one was it? That was, I think, what if the goal doesn't seem to be requiring enough or useful data?
That's an excellent question. So the other thing is how are we using data to, how do I think about this? How are we using data in order to make meaningful goals, right? Because sometimes you get goals and they are not super meaningful, right? They're not necessarily leading towards the larger goal of, whatever it is that the kid is needing. So I guess with that question, that's another reason why measurement is so important, because if you get a goal and you have a certain amount of time for your data collection period and you're not seeing a lot of movement, or conversely, the student meets the goal in the first 6 weeks, you didn't do it. You didn't strike the balance of if the goal was ambitious enough. The cool thing as a parent, or as a caregiver, or as a person working with IEP teams, is if that happens, you can have as many goals during the cycle as are, required. So if you're seeing that goals aren't ambitious enough, then it is up to the IEP team to reconvene to ensure that the student is getting the level of specially designed instruction that they need in order to progress. I'm hoping that answered the question, and I'll come back to it too if I didn't answer it.
Yeah, I'm them stashing them in the chat. Yeah.
Cool,
I think
cool.
there was also
I'll-
one other question that was how to convince the school members of the IP team to report progress on IP goals more often than each semester, because like sometimes we have quarterly, right? Each time that there's a progress report reported to the parents, then that's the frequency of reporting. But if there's semesters are pretty long, or trimesters are pretty long. So what do we do then?
I will absolutely come to that. I promise. This is very important. And this is something that I share with all my families that I work with, because I think that there needs to be a couple different levels of safeguarding for that. And there's really easy ways to do it. So I will come right back to that. So back to the best practices. Okay. So when you are looking at measurement, you need to make sure that all of the things that you're measuring are in the same category. We don't want to put something academic with something behavioral in the same goal. We don't want to put, there are many ways to confuse that. We want it to be simple, succinct, measurable. We also want to avoid measuring adult behaviors. This is a really common pitfall that we run into when we're writing IEP goals. We should not be basing things on adult interventions. It's not measurable, and oftentimes it's extremely biased and not really fair to anyone, especially the student. We don't need to be measuring adult interventions. We need to be coming up with ways to measure what the student is doing in order to make that fair. Okay. Okay, so where do you find the measurements in the IEP, right? And this sort of has to do with what you were talking about before in that previous question. So when you're looking at your goals, the frequency of data collection and progress monitoring should be clearly documented. I do not accept trimesterly or quarterly as an adequate progress monitoring timeline. It should be recorded in there. Part of it is, yes, it's going to be reported formally. Like if you get like an IEP online report, that will come trimesterly or quarterly or semesterly. But when you're looking at the actual IEP goal, you're going to be looking at how they're measuring it. And then one very, very simple thing that I love to do is it's going to say, at the end of the goal, it's going to say how data is collected. And oftentimes it'll be observation or, just teacher collected data. It's very simple. All you do is add the word weekly. And then they are accountable for collecting a data point weekly, which they should be doing anyway. So if you add the word weekly in there, then that will firm it up for them that there needs to be a weekly collected data point. So as measured by teacher collected data or student self-report on a weekly basis. And when I work with teams, they're often very amenable to doing that, which is great. We're just not taught as teachers to do that. And teachers are not taught many things and don't have access to a lot of information about this. Some of us just happen to have neurodivergent brains and a special interest in it, which is great. And sometimes you have to really ask those questions about, okay, what is the process of how you are going to be collecting this progress monitoring data? Because it's not really going to work if you don't look at it and then you only look at it on a trimesterly basis, because that's not allowing for pivots within your own practice, right? We need to be a little bit more direct and upfront. How often are you collecting a data point on this goal? How often are you serving this goal? What does it mean, right? And I am met with a lot of families that have teams that are very resistant to share the data. And I think that it's very important for us to move forward with courage in asking for the data. And that's something that I do and I love to do. It's a really important work. And honestly, it's great for teachers. It's great for teams. If I was the king of the world, I would sit down every single teacher and I would want to, you know, talk about data practices because they're just not accessing it in the ways that that they deserve. So that's part of it. So without data, all we have is an opinion. That's my cute little part of the slide. Yana wanted me to touch on ESY a little bit and what data is required for ESY. So ESY is extended school year, which is a specialized service that's offered to students with IEPs that have exhibited marked regression in their IEP goals over a period of not having instruction. So basically, when you're looking at if your kid or your student qualifies for extended school year, we're looking at collecting data before and after one of the breaks that occur naturally in the year. If a student demonstrates that they have regressed, which means they have lost the skills, they used to be at 4 out of 5 trials over a period of however long or whatever. And now they're only at 2 or 1. If that's happening, then you have cause to advocate for the student to have extended school year because you've demonstrated that the kid has an issue with maintaining information over periods of time without instruction. There are other exceptions to extended school year qualification if there are significant medical conditions that require the student to like have services, or if they're, during the pandemic, there were all sorts of exceptions. So if there is some sort of question about extended school year or how to obtain extended school year, that's definitely something that I can connect with folks about. Sometimes extended school year is a great thing. Sometimes it's not a great thing. Extended school year, just for everyone's knowledge, is based solely on the IEP and specially designed instruction for IEP goals. So students are not going to be receiving anything outside of special education services. So it's sort of a choice for each and every family if you are notified that your student does qualify for ESY. Okay, so last thing for me, and then I'll answer questions. This is my site. This is my email. I would love to talk to anyone who needs anything. And then I also have an upcoming free event. I have an Ask an Advocate event. So if anyone has burning questions, they want to come, I'm going to be answering further questions, and you can submit them ahead of time. And that way I can sort of get into things that are a little bit more specific, because I know this is pretty general. I'll put the link in the chat so that you guys can come. If you'd like to, feel free to share it around. Let me stop the share here. And let me put that on in the
So yeah,
chat.
do you want me to get through those questions, or do you want to do it yourself?
You want to ask me the questions? That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So let's see, there was, what happens? We only have 3 minutes, so let's see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Something
so what
else.
happens when this school evaluation team, this was about data. When the school
Right.
evaluation team or single evaluator say, data shows that the student doesn't need specially designed instruction, and yet the
Mhm.
student has missed a lot of classes.
So when we're
This is
talking about
not really
attention,
about progress monitoring, so feel free to skip that. But
okay, I can give
we
you a
talk
brief
about
one on
data.
that. Yeah, if the evaluator is saying that attendance is a factor and that attendance is the reason why the student is not performing, then that's when we start talking about the general education teacher, getting information from them, and also looking at the school's MTSS Tier 2 supports and what has happened there. We also can look at reasons why students are not attending. I know that we have tons of kiddos that are having school refusal, and that is part of what's going on. So there are a lot of different factors. If I don't know the specifics, I can't give specific advice, but there are a lot of different things that you can do if and when that happens.
Okay, thank you. This is, so can you ask to have the trials to be every 6 weeks? They usually do not do that, or is it something that is best practice on their end, meaning the school staff's end? And Cheryl says, my son has made no progress on all of his goals and regressed, plus no actual data. They just use grades as measurement. This seems to be common, especially in middle or high school. It is hard to know what to ask for.
Yep. So progress monitoring based on grades is not acceptable. And I will say that again, progress monitoring based on grades is not acceptable. Progress monitoring needs to be within the IEP and separate from anything that is evaluative from a general education standpoint. What we're looking at, Cheryl, I hate that happened to you. And you should and always should ask for them to include a 6 to 8 week data period for data collection because of this. It will safeguard you if you ask for and hold people accountable to having a measurement of time in order to close the data collection period so that they can really look at it. If 6 to 8 weeks have happened and there has been no movement, you are not doing correct interventions and you are not giving the correct specially designed instruction. Point blank. Does that answer it? I could talk about this a lot. I feel very passionately about this.
It's
And I've coached hundreds
8:31.
of teachers on this. So
Yeah, this is Yana. It's 8:31, so I think I'm gonna take one more question here, and we need to be respectful. But like you said, that you have events, so come and pick your brain there, or reach out and work. Yep. So another one was, can you please give an example of measuring the adults? You were talking about goals. We are not going to measure what the adults are doing, but what the child or what the
So-
student's doing.
Yeah. The most common one is adult redirects. Don't measure that because an adult is not a consistent factor. Adults, there might be a sub. There might be an adult that has a large amount of students. There might be an adult that's not on their game. There might be an adult that's overly redirective, which is not always the best thing. So we don't want to measure adult redirections. It's very, very biased. That's the biggest example I can think of, but there's a bunch more.
So this is Yana. So for example, student will do X with 3 prompts. Is that measuring? That's measuring adult behaviors, yeah? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and there are ways to get around that. And I'm more than happy to talk more with you. I'm happy to consult, and I hope that everyone got something. I love this community, and I hope to connect with people further.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This was very helpful. I know this is not the last time we're seeing you, so thank you for spending the time with us, and thank you to everyone. It is 8:33. Thank you to the interpreters, and we hope you have a good night.